Hi, welcome back to Depth Talk. It's been a minute. Some of us have been out in the sun getting some tans, and today we have Mr. Dylan McKay.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be talking with you, Polly, and I think this actually is the first time you and I have ever talked over the phone or video call. I think we've sent videos to each other and we've talked through Messenger over the years.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to actually have a conversation with you. I'm Dylan McKay, like you just said, and I'm part of AllButOne Productions. What did you ask me to do again?
Well, it's just an honor that you're here because I'm a big fan of your work. You're a director, you're an actor, you're a writer, producer. You do everything. And you have a great team. You've made films that go from comedy to drama to horror and fan films as well. What inspires this? Like, what fuels you?
When you kind of start out as an amateur filmmaker and you're making movies, sometimes as the years go by, you look back and you're like, it seemed like I used to be able to just make things quicker. How did I just pump these things out? But as you get more skilled and you acquire more equipment and you start making more adjustments, like when you do start getting into sound design, if you add like a sound effect to one moment in a scene, but you don't do it to the rest of the scene, suddenly it just becomes noticeable that you're not matching that energy throughout. And I find that to be like that's one of the curves of difficulty that comes with advancing and being an amateur, like having to do it all yourself. You start to become conflicted with, like you said, civil responsibility and balancing life responsibilities with your creative endeavors, keeping people motivated or interested. I mean, when you're 2-3 years in on a project and you're like, oh, hey, we got to film this scene. You try to set something up. Some of your cast members or people that are involved are like, we're still making that, or I don't know, like they become a little bit less, that's not just throw shade at anyone involved with my film, by the way. It's just like, that's on me. The struggle, I guess, as an amateur filmmaker is your resume essentially is that you've completed work and that you are going to follow through on the projects that you've started. That's all you really have. Like when you're asking people to do something for free, it's like, I promise you this will be something and you will be able to have it. You know, when it comes to like writing a book, or if you're a painter, those are things that you can do on your own. And if you decide halfway through it gets too hard, you can kind of give up and start something new. And so like I have a huge amount of respect for kind of solo artists in that regard, people that can have that internal motivation to follow through on something when they're the only ones that need to be held accountable for it. Whereas when you're making a film, it's such a team effort that once I have filmed 1 or 2 scenes for the movie that involve other people, that's now what's holding me accountable. If I lose all motivation, I'm going to be letting down all of these people that have helped me along this way towards this goal. And that's what keeps me kind of driven sometimes, is that responsibility to follow through on a commitment that I made, you know, being just kind of a man of my word with it. If it was just me making the movie somehow and I was the only one in it, it would be a lot easier to be like, you know what, 4 years, like it just wouldn't see the light of day. And maybe that sounds a little pessimistic, but I mean to say that in like you have a responsibility as a creator and as a filmmaker when you are involving other people to see it through, because it's theirs too now. It's not just yours, I guess, you know. Kind of it all started just in childhood, probably like it does for most creatives and probably for you too. But, you know, I was a huge James Bond fan growing up, and, you know, we were making James Bond films, me and my friends in the neighborhood, just as little kids, you know. And my brother used to always be the guy behind the video camera. We used to have like a little camcorder, and he would film stuff and I would play James Bond. And then I would, you know, my friend Mac, who plays James Bond now, I've known him since, you know, kindergarten, grade school. And so he would usually be like whatever bad guy was in it. And we made a bunch of those when we were really young. And sadly, they're all on a tape that we've completely lost. So I don't have any way to recover any of those. It'd be kind of fun to go look back at them. But, you know, that kind of initiated the whole fan film aspect, which then when I got into high school, I wasn't until my senior year of high school that I took a film class, which up until that point, I had always wanted to be an actor, and I took drama classes and was always really interested in performance arts. And then, I took a film class my senior year of high school, and that kind of introduced me to the concept of being behind the camera. And I got really excited about telling a story from, behind a camera and through a lens. And so the first natural big project outside of a school oriented project for me was like, let's do another James Bond movie, but this time I'm going to direct it. And my best friend, Mac, who already just looks the part. He's definitely a better James Bond than I was. He was down to do it with me and excited. So we made a James Bond film like that summer after I graduated high school. Both of us did. I don't even know if we really even thought of the term fan film back then. It was just, we just made James Bond movies. That's just what we did. So then, we made that, and I published that. I don't even think I published that to YouTube for a few years until like after we had made it, but we made that. We actually premiered it in front of a small audience, and the kind of feeling I had from showing it to an audience was like, whoa, like people can take what we make seriously. And it was just kind of a really humbling experience, I guess, to be able to sit in an auditorium and have people like clap and cheer and feel invested in the moments. And it just, I remember the conversations after that of, sitting in the car and being like, wow, we can make movies and people will pay attention to them.
I saw Fool's Paradise back in 2013, and that's the first film that I saw from you guys. And that sequence at the end where Mac as George James Bond jumps from the parking lot ceiling and lands on top of the car, and then you continue the sequence with him doing this incredible stunt. And I was realizing that this is done by people making a movie out of their own pocket, right? Like, this is a film fueled by passion, and you were so daring, you were so brave, and so great about how you just went for it. This is the kind of stuff that inspires someone just scrolling through YouTube going, independent filmmaking, independent action films, independent fan films. And I find this film, and I'm compelled by it. And I want to see more from these people because they're so brave. And they don't seem to care if anyone says no to them. Because I was getting a lot of no's. I was getting these kinds of ideas, these crazy ideas, and people were telling me, no, you're gonna get yourself hurt. You shouldn't do that. No one's gonna want to do that. And fair enough. You need to have safety regulations. And I'm so curious about this scene.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling us brave, or including me in that, but really it's Mac at that point where he's throwing his life on the line. We made A Fool's Paradise when we were 19 years old. I think it's a combination of just being ignorant and kind of dumb, like we're okay just going and doing something completely stupid and illegal and
illegal.
Yeah,
that's not what you want to hear.
That's right. I think when we put it in the film, and like Mac's mom in particular, when she saw that, she was like, no, you did. Like, she cringes at that. She hated seeing that, but she also is very supportive. She's amazing. But you could consider her one of our producers as well as my mom. But we, I guess that is the thing. And like you said, you had a lot of people kind of saying, no, don't do that. That's dangerous or whatever. We just kind of didn't tell anyone, and then we would go do it and then ask for permission later, or ask for apologies later. But yeah, so that scene, I remember I had the idea. We were kind of on a tight deadline to finish this movie, and because Mac Jolly was leaving on an LDS mission, which if you're not aware, it's like a 2-year religious mission where he ended up going and living in Guatemala for 2 years, which is why the third movie starts in Guatemala. And we premiered the movie about 4 days before he actually left for 2 years. So we were just under this tight crunch, but I was thinking like the movie didn't have, we tried to do all these kind of climactic action scenes at the end, and it didn't have like enough of a punch or a satisfying finale. And the movie was supposed to end without that whole car chase segment. And I remember pitching to Mac this idea. I was like, we we got to do like one more big thing. Like we have our little fist fight and we have a little gunfight, but they're not like bringing home the movie. We have to have like a big stunt. And I don't remember where I got the idea, but I liked the idea of running across the parking garage and having to jump down. And Mac was like, I'm literally leaving on a mission for 2 years where I'm going to have to be walking around like every single day. And I can't injure myself right before I do this. Cause I wanted him so badly to jump off of that second floor of the parking garage, like for real. And so in an attempt to show him that it could be done, I did it first, which you can see in the blooper reel. And I jumped off, I landed and just, I tried to stay like, composed or whatever, like, oh, it was totally good. I land, but my knees just immediately, like the shock and reverberation of landing directly on my legs was like, oh my God, like it hurt so bad. Max, like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, I don't blame you. So we used some cheat cuts. We just did it on the first floor. We get an upward angle of him jumping over.
Because you do get the clear view from the top that the car is going to show up from underneath. And then you do the low angle. And I thought, well, did he actually jump? No, it must have been from another perspective and much, much lower of a height difference right there. That explains it.
I appreciate you interjecting with that because we had to use, a lot of the time we are just using tricks because, you have to, but we tried it for real. I wanted to do it for real. And I kind of proved that couldn't be done. So, I mean, I didn't suffer any real injuries, but it was definitely like, he could have obviously had like a real injury from it. So, but then we do the thing on the hood and
that's amazing, by the way. People, that you got to see this. You. Yeah.
In retrospect, I am actually surprised we pulled it off. So my friend Ben, who's in the Yolo movies, Ben Anderson, he helped us with this scene. That's actually his car in the whole sequence. But he had built this homemade camera crane, which is just like a bunch of PVC pipe and like counterweights and stuff. But it went up like 12 feet in the air. He borrows his dad's truck. And in the back of the truck, we put this camera crane, which is just like a piece of junk. It barely holds together. And we have the camera attached to the end of it. And then we get on a highway, like we just drive out as far away from like society as we could so that no one would see us. And we're going like 65 miles per hour with this camera crane in the back of a truck that's just at any point could have just broken and we would have lost our camera. Oof. And the driver of like our character, our villain character, is Mac's eventual father-in-law, which that's actually crazy to think in retrospect that he was willing to let us do this. I know he was like the most nervous. He wasn't, I kept like yelling from the back of the truck, drive faster. And he's like, I'm not going faster than this because he was nervous for Mac's life. And then if you notice in the movie, then as they're on the road, then a police car starts chasing them. Now that is my uncle, and he bought a used car from a friend of his, and it used to be an undercover police vehicle. My uncle is not a police officer, and legally you're supposed to remove those police lights from a car, from an undercover police car, before you resell it. But so those lights, those police lights were real and they are illegal as well. So he shows up with his illegal undercover police car that he shouldn't have anymore and totally helps us film this scene so we could have like a police car chasing him. So everything we were doing, like if we had gotten caught, I feel like could have been bad. We just did it for real. There was no safety harnesses or precautions or anything. So you just did it.
We didn't have any safety people either. This is the kind of thing that happens when you have such a clear passion for this vision and you're driven to the point where you just jump and do it. And suddenly you feel like a superhero. But yes, people definitely do not try this at home for sure. And we've all learned to be very cautious. But yes, I saw this film because of this sequence. It really made me want to see everything you had done. And I went in to your filmography and I started checking things out. And I also remember certain short films were popping up from another channel where you play this character that finds an app on his phone where you can hear what other people are talking. It's called Intuition. And then I felt it was so endearing, and it's just such a kind, warm, bubbly film. And I like this variety, how you could go from this pulse-pounding action film to this very small, humble little story about this kind guy. We don't really stick to one genre. We go for what inspires us. The story that we find in our head also tells us the tone and style. So tell me about these other short films like Intuition and Extraordinary People.
Those are deep cuts. It's crazy. Thanks for bringing those up. So Intuition, my friend Ben, who I mentioned before, who's in the Yolo films with me, he and I became friends right before we made A Fool's Paradise. We worked at Village Pizza together, this pizza shop that his family actually owned. He got really into filmmaking alongside me, and he began going to university for film school. And that was actually a project that he wrote and directed that he just asked me to be in. And so that was something he did for his, as part of his college class. And
this does remind me of the film school days. In my own life, I went to film school, and then I met friends, and we would all help each other up on each other projects. We were peers, right? So like what you did, you jump into your friend's film, and then your friend helps you with your film, and it's just a community of being creative.
Intuition was fun because, I mean, it was cool that he wanted me to act in it. And really, you know, like I'd mentioned to you before, I was always interested in acting prior to that. But it's kind of cool to be able to kind of cut loose and then just be a part of something else. And so that was Intuition. And then Extraordinary People actually came about from another one of those kind of friends that was in film school. I didn't go to the same film school or anything as they did. I actually did a year of film school as well, and I made a film that was a zombie movie that, anyway.
I've seen as well.
Oh yeah, that one is Lewis, I think, which, man, there's interesting stories to that too, because it's just like our instruction was he didn't want to teach us how to record audio. So his whole instruction was that it was all going to be a silent film. We would just ADR stuff after the fact. So that movie was it was kind of crazy. I guess this is probably what happens in a lot of college film classes, but at least in that class, we all kind of pitched an idea, and then the top 6 ideas people kind of voted on, and then we would make those ideas. So I had pitched this zombie idea for a vegetarian zombie that got picked as one of those 6. And so they gave me the opportunity to direct that. But then all 6 or 7 of us had to write our own script for that story, which I think I don't think that's the greatest way of like producing a film, having 6 or 7 totally different ideas that are fully fleshed out scripts. Our instructor kind of wanted to use it as an opportunity to like, we'll just kind of do this 1 year long project where I'll teach them how to script, I'll teach them how to ADR, I'll teach them how to light, do it all, but it's tied to one project. But it was a story that I had already written. And so then I wrote it again, and 5 or 6 other people also wrote it. And then we merged all of those. So the movie's very disjointed because of that.
Wow, I've never heard of doing an assignment in film that way, where everyone writes the script for the same project and then you merge them together. That's interesting, but I'm glad that it somehow worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely proud of the movie, and it was fun to work on and all of that, but it just is a interesting way to teach collaboration. Ultimately, everyone had their own different kind of core thing about their script that we were trying to figure out how to tie together, and kind of giving you my whole group of friends here that we make movies with. But Josh Randall, he's a guy that I work really closely with. He plays our boss in the Yolo movies at Village Pizza, and he was the antagonist in my 3rd Bond film, Gerard. And so Josh Randall, he and Ben actually were childhood friends. So they grew up together like me and Mac grew up together. Josh and Ben, within their friend group, was this guy, Trey, who then was making Extraordinary People, an episodic series. And every episode was going to focus on someone different, with some sort of kind of unique quirk or idea, and how they kind of like fit into the real world. ranging from something as simple as someone who kind of types at like a crazy fast speed to like my character who actually had like a superpower, I guess you could say, where I would just transport to any location where someone wasn't recycling and like force them to recycle.
It's so original. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's
just teleport away, and that line delivery, Dylan, it's perfect. I mean, to this day, I remember it. You know, it's one of those things.
Wow.
Like, how do I know this? Well, because you did such a good job and you did such a good effect. And Ben's in there too. Shout out to Ben, of course.
Yeah.
What did you use, Pro? What is this? Perfectly reducible, reusable aluminum. Nice. You better think before you drink, pal, because you can bet your slippers I won't be so environmentally friendly.
Oh, that's
that's
so
just
funny.
from the top of my head. I haven't rewatched it.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
I may have butchered it though.
I think you got it. That's amazing. So it's their words, but no, they gave me that opportunity, which was really fun because they also wanted me to do like a Boston accent, which I had a lot of fun doing. I don't know if it's all that accurate, but
all right. Now, Yolo the movie. I got the copy right here. I got Yolo the movie sent to me by Dylan McKay, and I never thought I'd be quoted on the back of a Blu-ray as a film critic. This is a very funny movie with great characters. There's also a great deal of emotion. Hopefully this film can motivate people to not be sad over not getting what you want, but perhaps think more optimistically.
I think your review of this movie, I can't remember how, because now after all the years, like you reviewed it in a couple places, whether it was just a comment on YouTube. I think it was just a comment on YouTube at first, but then you've gone and reviewed it on IMDb. And I think you did it for one of the LIF magazines or something. The first time I read your full review of it, like it actually moved me to tears, if I'm being honest, which I feel like hearing you talk about it again and listen to you watch it on the laptop with Emilio and David. Is that right? You said? Yeah. Just knowing that you guys are watching my movie on a laptop and feeling that connected with it and that you felt compelled to write such a thoughtful, full-length review. I mean, that review has meant the world to me. I think it was, Yolo compared to my Bond films gets a much smaller amount of views, but it's also a much more personal kind of film. So to have it touch and connect in that way, it meant so much to me. So the first thing I remember when I was doing these Blu-rays a few years ago, I was like, I got to put some clip from something Paulie had said on there. And and I got Martin Groff on the back here too. And of course, and his comments were really, really meaningful as well to me on this one. So
just having him and me, like me next to him, like the caliber of him too, like the respect I have for him. Wow. You're very welcome. This is a personal film, and I can tell that.
What made me want to make it in the first place was an attempt to get girls' numbers. I guess that's really the truth. In 2011, I guess I was still in high school. It kind of was just related to like dating struggles in high school, and a buddy of mine, Devin Allgood. I love Devin to death, by the way. We moved away from each other, and unfortunately, like we haven't been able to maintain as close of a relationship. We're still close through like social media and stuff like that. I had some of my movies or videos that I was making for like our film class that would play in like the cafeteria and stuff. And, oh, you're the guy that, makes the videos. And so then it was like, well, shoot, like this might be our entry point or into like talking to girls, And
wow. That's funny.
Yeah. So because, always kind of like nerdy or self-conscious about it, I guess, and
this is a theme that I mentioned because I mean, that's why we related so much to this.
I think sometimes it's hard to like make something where you come across as like the vulnerable idiots, the one who can't get a girl, right? Like people that are making movies in high school are like, I want to look macho and tough. And like, I'm not saying everyone, but like it's natural to want to present yourself as someone who's confident, as someone who's capable. And so to then go make a movie where you present yourself as someone who struggles with confidence, who struggles with dating, it's a kind of a scary thing in some ways. For whatever reason, it always felt somewhat natural to me. And I felt more comfortable through this idea that I'm playing a character. Man, in 2012, we filmed a bunch of scenes. It wasn't called Yolo, the movie back then. Ben came up with that title, by the way. So in like 2015, like right before we
Edward
put out
and
the poster
Jacob.
and premiered it. Yeah, it was Edward
original.
and Jacob. Yeah, which was it just almost like a temp title, I guess. I never really knew what to call it, and I was like, I guess I'll just call it Edward and Jacob. Some of the footage is lost, which is sad. I used to just delete my hard drives. Like I'd edit something, delete all the footage, and move on. And it's actually crazy thinking about that now. I'm like, man, I want to hold on to that stuff in case there's something.
Yeah.
Right after high school, me and Austin Iyama, who plays Trendy Asian Dude, we moved in together, and so I lived with him. And so in the current version of Yolo, his whole spiel of, his video that he posts on YouTube that we are watching, where he's a dating coach, that clip is from the original, like 2012 Yolo. So, which is why you can kind of tell he got really into weightlifting after that. He's like jacked in the movie.
That's the moment right there when we were watching the movie, right after that video of Trendy Asian Dude. And your character, you pause the video, right? And you go, this is it. That's it. This is it. That's when we also went like, yeah, this has completely clicked with us. And we are on board for the rest of this movie.
Dude, he brought so much to that movie. I mean, similarly, growing up in Utah, there's a large Mormon community, right? And so Devin Allgood also left on an LDS mission, and we were unable to finish filming that movie. And while he was gone on the mission, I did not go on an LDS mission myself, by the way. So that's why I was still making stuff while either he or Mac were gone. Devin Allgood left on his mission. Me and Austin, who plays Trendy Asian Dude, we actually spent a lot of time collaborating on the script for what would have become Yolo, the movie. So he was actually a big writing partner for me. We came up with a lot of ideas for it. And we just kind of worked on it over the course of 2 years while Devin was gone, with full intention that when Devin came back from his mission, which would have been in 2014, that we would just pick up filming with him. Mac, who plays James Bond, he's on his mission from 2013 to 2015. So we were like, well, when Devin comes home in 2014, we'll make Yolo, and then we'll make a third Bond movie when Mac comes back, because me and Mac were writing Bond over emails while he was on his mission. When Devin came back in 2014, we actually shot another sequence with him. It's the scene where he goes on the bowling date. The girl that was actually playing Sarah ends up being his wife. They had just started dating and they fell in love, and then he was getting married and moving to New York, and he kind of just told me that he didn't think he'd be able to make the movie, and totally amicable. It was nothing. And they're amazing. They have a couple of kids together, and so yes, all love for them. It was kind of ironic because we filmed this scene one weekend at this same exact location, and then we showed up the next weekend with two different actors. Both times me and Austin were there. We were the ones filming it. And it was the same clerks and employees. And I just remember thinking, like, the employees were like, who do these two people keep bringing and like filming? Like, what are these guys doing? Like, Ben kind of was a natural person to fill the role because he was already going to be in the movie. Ben's original character was going to be our boss at Village Pizza. He wasn't as interested in doing like acting as much as I was. I just knew something about Ben and I's chemistry on screen together was just going to really work. We had like the right yin and yang to our personalities. Yeah. And then history was made. But man, I should have given you the Cliff Notes version of that. Austin helped me write it. Ben was fantastic in it.
It made an impact, like being so brave with the stunt sequence, for example, but here you were brave with your emotions. And of course, it's always fiction, but truth seeps through. Perfect combination of the drama with the humor. I can't forget, Mac's character. I want some pizza pies, some juicy pizza pies. Yeah. My wife's hungry. That's the sequel though, but
that's it. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think because it is dealing with some kind of like real themes, but having a character like Trendy Asian Dude, who's kind of this really big over the top personality, it kind of helps shape then the other characters that we filled into the world. When it came to like the end with like the mafia boss and Maurice, that again timed out so perfectly because I had written into the script that it was just going to be Tony the Tiger. And the movie took long enough to make that Mac came home from his mission just in time. And it just so happened to be that none of the Tony the Tiger stuff had been shot. Like we had filmed like 75% of the movie, and I was able to slot, like I came up with a part for Mac really quick. And I was like, you'll just be Tony the Tiger's son and it'll be a really fun duo. And, you know, Tony the Tiger is played by my dad, and their chemistry is great because he kind of grew up with us together. And so we kind of took like a 3-month hiatus, like over the winter. And I'm so grateful we did. And we didn't like get the movie done quicker because it allowed us to open up a part for Mac. And I think he ends up being one of the most memorable parts of the whole movie for me.
Now we are 10 years later. It's a trilogy now. And you made Yolo the horror movie and Yolo Undercover, blending more genres with these same two characters. And at the same time, you're telling something about your guys' lives, how you're evolving with these two, Edward and Jacob.
You know, you touched on this earlier when you brought up how you saw like Intuition and Extraordinary People and then eventually Yolo. I think I always had an interest in exploring other genres, and I always wanted to make something new or different kind of with each film. And while we were making Shadows, which was a 4-year film, I really didn't do any other filmmaking during that time because I was just so creatively tied up with that and then other life scenario stuff, and kind of at that exact sweet spot in life where, you know, everyone's like trying to figure out what their career is, and me personally trying to figure out what it is I'm going to try to do with film. Am I trying to be a freelance videographer, all that stuff, right? I struggled to come up with ideas, and I mean, just flat out. So when it came to making the next Yolo, you know, I just finished Shadows. We just premiered it in like February of 2020, right before COVID. And I thank God we got it was like 2 weeks before COVID. And so luckily we got to have a full auditorium and do all of that. And thankfully so, because I think I needed that coming off of 4 years of making a movie. So I needed to like get my excitement back for filmmaking after Shadows. And so I needed to make something quick. I needed it to be fun again. And I mean, Shadows was fun and all, but you know, when you spend that long on something, it can be
ambitious, right?
Right.
And that's a serious story too. I mean, it's got some dark themes to it, and even though you also have a lot of fun with it, I mean, the Ocean's 11 style editing heist kind of moment there, you know, when it's going into the party, all of that. That stands out. So I mean, it's there, but I get you. It does have this somber undertone. So I get you that you wanted to make something that's a bit of the opposite of that. So I suppose then you just realized, hey, Edward and Jacob.
Yep, that's really what it was. It was like I wanted to do a different genre, and then, you know, and I'd been thinking about trying to figure out something with Yolo for a while, like a series or something. And then it just naturally made sense. I was like, well, if I have something I want to have out by Halloween, and it was like the summer, I was like, I want to make a horror movie. I want it to come out by Halloween. And it just made sense to just bring Edward and Jacob back for that. I was like, well, there's no reason why, you know, because the struggle with Yolo was always going to be, what's the follow-up? It was initially a romantic comedy. If they're both in relationships, then is it just about them in their relationships? Like the whole goal of the first movie was like finding the relationships. And then of course, strengthening the bond between our two main characters and all of that. But the sequel would require a new set of goals and something different. And I thought, well, if you put it in the context of a horror movie, then you're just kind of switching the entire theme up and you're switching expectations up. Like the audience isn't going to go into Yolo, the horror movie, thinking I need like a satisfying sequel to Yolo. They're kind of coming in with just like, oh, sweet, characters I previously liked, hopefully, are coming back into just like a new different thing. I could put all this synthwave music and 80s vibes to it. So I could push myself experimentally with the filmmaking. That was the key motivation for Yolo, the horror movie.
It really worked out. It really worked out. And then with the third film, did you have other ideas that you wanted to dabble into completely different genres with that one? Or what made you decide for Undercover?
I liked the idea that thematically I could tie all three films together as being like a chronicle of your entire 20s and like dealing with turning 30 and facing like adulthood in like its realist form. The conflict between having to just grow up, be an adult versus like how much of life is still about having fun and adventure. The Undercover kind of like moniker, obviously that kind of started as like, obviously it's like a spy or detective story, But the undercover was supposed to kind of be like a metaphor for how at least my character, Edward, was unwilling to like look at himself for real. You know, he was kind of just going through life being like undercover in a way, like in a facade, not looking deeper and realizing he had some like real stuff he had to sort out. The first movie, I feel like I used Ben's character, Jacob, as like a scapegoat for some of the real stuff I wanted to touch on in the movie. And he was a little bit more the emphasis, I would say, in the first film. You know, because even the second movie, there's like little offhanded comments or remarks about like depression and some things that are kind of like layered underneath it that are definitely there. I tend to write all of this dramatic stuff and then I cheat away from it by going for like comedy or having a quicker pacing. But there was definitely an undercurrent of real dramatic things that were kind of leading it and maybe some depression and stuff that was kind of underneath it. And then, yeah, the third film was that it's not like midlife crisis or anything like that, but it is just that whole concept of growing up. So
I think you find a good balance. The first time that I was able to take away that feeling of fear or embarrassment about speaking some truth was when I was writing the Cold Wars script. There's a parallel here that I'm realizing. We had two characters, and one character is kind of in his head is living his life as if he's in a movie, and the other one is more realistic. He's more easily affected to be cynical, and then you have yin and yang thanks to that, and then you have humor to a degree, because when reality hits, it really hits, and then you let your characters just speak their genuine truth. And it's interesting. I didn't think about this before, but I'm thinking about this now, and especially since I am writing, I'm going to write a new draft for the sequel to that, actually. And similar to how you said that Yolo Undercover is dealing with passage of time, how adult responsibilities are coming through. I mean, the new movie will deal with real things that I've seen happening, and especially in my friend group and life. I'm making sure to not shy away and to almost feel like, I mean, you're almost a little embarrassed to hand the script over to someone because it's like, oh, you're looking into someone's head. I relate to what you're saying. I think YOLO Undercover is also just a nice drama as well about you finding your superior half in this case, and how you take from your real life. How did you convince your wife to be in this? Like, how did you make this work?
Yeah, she didn't want to. Occasionally, I would have a conversation with her and kind of inspire her to, and she'd be like, "All right, I'll do it." The next day, I'd be like, "I don't want to do this." I'm like, shoot, you know. But no, she was awesome about it. I mean, she is my biggest fan. Like, honestly, she loves the first Yolo movies so much. She watched that like the first week we were dating. She found that movie and watched it and just loved it. And so I wanted the third one to have some finality to it. And I wanted my character and Ben's character to end up with who they're supposed to end up, finish off that arc. The first movie being about like finding your partner. You know, the second one has like loss, and I wanted to explore the loss a lot more than we did. I actually wrote a whole short film that I still kind of want to shoot. It would have taken place between the horror movie and Undercover. Mostly focuses on Ben's character Jacob with Sarah. And I know we had to recast Sarah in the new movie, but we almost shot this stuff with the original Sarah. But a conflict happened and she actually wasn't able to show up to the shoot of that Halloween party. It was right after Ben had just kind of like moved on and started to find something with someone new. And then it would just end with him opening the door and it's her. And it's like, oh, shoot, she's back. Ben was going to be really stuck in this position of he was so hung up on her for so long that he's dealing with all of the emotions of being both angry, but also excited she's back in his life. I had a really fun concept for the short film that so Sarah shows up at the Halloween party and asks Jacob, maybe we can grab like a cup of coffee sometime, which a lot of the stuff that the dialogue that was in that scene actually is in Undercover, but it's with the new Sarah. And I think Ben actually nails his performance in that sequence in Undercover with like, he's just kind of like upset at her, playing into like wanting to be with her again. He's battling those urges of being angry and having to kind of stand up with himself. And it's cross-cutting between like me and him 5 years prior road tripping to go visit Sarah away at college. And so we have this really fun like road trip movie that's happening, and we're cross-cutting between them. And then like we pull over at a gas station. Inside, I look out the window and I see he's having like a really bad, like he's got a phone call from Sarah, and he's like clearly like going through like a frustrating emotional moment, and just see it through the window as he's at this gas station. Mm. And then I show back up in the car, and he's just like in tears, and it's just silent. And then that's like the extent of the flashback. And that's like dealing with his breakup, and cross-cutting that between the conversation they have at the door at the Halloween party and the eventual date he then goes on with her in the modern day. Not date, but re-kinship. Oh, she's like ready to maybe have a relationship again, and he's just barely moving past things. But now he's like, anyway, I just gave you the whole thing for that. But I really,
it's powerful.
Ben's really good at that drama stuff too, and I think he would, yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. So I was going to start Yolo Undercover that way, but it was going to be pretty. The movie's already long, so it was going to be real long. But
I get that.
So yeah, I wanted to have finality, and I wanted to end this movie kind of like Ben with his real life wife and me with my real life wife. And so Vanessa was excited about that concept of it, and she wanted to like help fulfill that vision. And then she had a lot of fun with it too. So
I'm happy how it turned out, and it's really interesting to hear this other concept. And when you find the right story and setting, I suppose the door's open.
It's at least the closing of a chapter in one sense, and I think it would be quite a few years before we pick it up. But I definitely like the idea of exploring like going through your 40s and like your midlife crisis kind of stuff. Like I thought of YOLO Crisis as a potential title, and then it being like a Blade Runner sci-fi style futuristic movie. So but exploring like, but like the under theme is midlife crisis through that, but it's like on its front, it's this big like elaborate sci-fi thing. So I feel like we got to come a long way with special effects before we get there, but Moonraker 2 will kind of show some of that off.
What an ingenue this is. This is like dabbling the different genres and experimentation. It's so awesome. And right now you got Moonraker 2 in the works, and it should be coming out at some point this year. Very excited about that. Once that is out, we should definitely do another depth talk where we can break that movie down, because I'm so curious about it. But Dylan, where can the audience on the internet find you?
Yes, you can find me on AllButOne Productions YouTube channel, which is just AllButOne Productions. I'm also making like a bunch of movie reviews and other random movie related topics. And if you're into like the Criterion Collection, physical media, I talk about that on my other channel, which is just called Dylan McKay. So you can search that. If you find the AllButOne Productions page, then it's in the featured channels. You can click over and check out my personal YouTube. And I've been posting, I think, pretty regularly. So if you're, want to see what I have to say about whatever movies are coming out, then go check it out.
Yes, it will be linked here below. And it's kind of like this channel, but better, because he posts more frequently.
That's not true.
He's got the Criterion Collection videos. He's got the movie reviews. It's really, really fun. A fun time. And amazing to have you here. And we can really go further, but we're going to have to continue at some point soon enough.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again. I really appreciate you inviting me out. And if you made it this far, audience, I'm a long-winded person, so I need to. Thanks for listening to that whole thing.
No worries. I mean, lastly, I'll just ask you if you could just summarize what filmmaking means to you.
Filmmaking for me is a way to see the world through a different lens that makes me appreciate life that I otherwise probably just wouldn't. I'm not very poetic. Polly is much more poetic. You have a great way with words, but I think if I oftentimes just think of things in a frame, and it gets me excited about life and gets me excited about creating. And if I didn't have that frame to think about things through, I think I'd be pretty sad.
Amen to that. You nailed it. See you on the next TED Talk.
And I look forward to the new Clank movie. I mean, obviously you've released some clips and some teasers over the years, but just seeing a little bit of just the flashes of clips from some of the fight sequences and the gun effects and the visuals, this one looks really impressive. Like I'm honestly blown away looking at it. Like from the editing and the sound design in just those trailers that you've released. I don't know, man. You guys have gone like a whole step ahead with it. It looks really impressive. So